Hello and welcome to Olga Poltava Crochet channel. Every Saturday I share a new crochet tutorial, and today it's a scarf work with the wheat stitch. Just look how beautiful the texture and the stitch definition are. The finished scarf has a soft, silky feel. The fabric looks very similar on the right and wrong sides with very subtle differences. The yarn that I used is Soft and Shiny by Loops and Threads. It's a machine washable, worsted weight or category 4, 100% acrylic yarn. The color I chose is Ice Coffee. I used 2 skeins of this yarn, which is about 622 yards or 340 grams. Hook size H, 5 millimeters. The finished measurements of the scarf are about 76 inches long and 6.5 inches wide, but you can easily adjust it to other sizes. In this tutorial, I will demonstrate the stitch and share how I made the scarf. I'll include the multiple for the stitch so that you can experiment and try the stitch with other projects. A blanket work with this stitch would look very pretty and fancy. A cardigan would look absolutely gorgeous. Please remember to give my video a like, a hype, and leave me a comment. I greatly appreciate all of that. Thank you. The starting chain must be a multiple of 2 plus 1. For the actual scarf, which is crocheted in these very long rows, I started with 241 chains, but I'm going to make a sample to demonstrate this stitch, and for my sample I will start with 21 chains, and I crochet the chains quite loosely. Here I have 21 chains and I'm ready to start the first row. I will be crocheting the first row into the back humps of the chain, and I greatly recommend doing so that you have a really beautiful edge of the scarf over here. The first round is going to be a round of half double crochets. I'm going to work the first half double crochet into the third chain from the hook. We never count the chain on the hook, we always start counting from the next one. 1, 2, 3, into the third chain, working under the back humps. I do yarn over and I make a half double crochet. So this is the first stitch of the first row, and I'm going to mark it with a stitch marker. Now I will make a half double crochet into each chain across. So the first row is very simple. It's a row of half double crochets worked into the back humps of the chain. I finished the first row. It's just a row of half double crochets. I turn my work and I start the next row with 2 chains. 1, 2. These 2 chains don't count as a stitch. Now the first stitch is over here and the second stitch is here. I'm going to skip this first stitch, and into the next stitch through both loops I work half double crochet. Now I'm going to go backwards to this skipped stitch, and into this stitch I will work a puff stitch. So I do yarn over, and then into the skipped stitch I insert the hook and draw up a loop. Again, I do yarn over, into that same stitch I insert the hook and draw up a loop. And again, yarn over, insert the hook, draw up a loop. And now I have a total of 7 loops on the hook. There are 6 loops over here that I did yarn over and draw up a loop, and there is that loop that already was on the hook. Now I do yarn over and I draw through all 7 loops on the hook, and here I have my puff stitch. So this is the next stitch. I'm skipping it, and into the following stitch, again under both loops, I work a half double crochet. Now I'm gonna go backwards again to the skipped stitch, and I will make a puff stitch the same as this one. So yarn over, insert the hook, draw up a loop, yarn over, insert the hook, draw up a loop, yarn over, insert the hook, draw up a loop. And notice that when I do yarn over, insert the hook, draw up a loop, I'm using my middle finger to hold these loops on the hook so they don't slide, they don't stretch, they don't change in size. I hold them firmly like this so they stay the same size. Now I do yarn over and I pull through all of them, and that's how I get a beautiful tilted puff stitch. This is the next stitch. I'm skipping it, and into the next one, through both loops, I do a half double crochet. And then into this skipped stitch, again, I will work a puff stitch, yarn over, insert the hook, draw up a loop. And look how I'm holding these loops with my middle finger. Yarn over, insert the hook, draw up a loop. Yarn over, insert the hook, draw up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on the hook. Skip the next stitch and into the next one. Under both loops, there are 2 loops on the top over here. I make a half double crochet. And that's how I'm going to continue crocheting this row all the way across. And I'll see you at the end of this row. Here I am at the end of the row. I just worked the last puff stitch, and here I have 1 stitch left. This is a half double crochet which I marked with a stitch marker, and into this last half double crochet I'm going to make a half double crochet. So notice here that at the end of the row I don't skip stitches. Before I was skipping a stitch, but here I don't. I simply make a half double crochet through both loops into the last half double crochet. So this is the first row, and actually when I made the first half double crochet over here, I should have marked that stitch as the first stitch of the row, because with a small sample I can simply count the amount of stitches in each row, but with the actual scarf there will be more than 200 stitches in the row, so you don't want to count all of them, and it's better to mark each first half double crochet of each row with a stitch marker. Okay, so I start the next row, I turn my work, and I start the next row with 2 chains. 1, 2. These 2 chains don't count as a stitch. This is the first stitch of the row, and this is the second stitch. So I'm going to skip the first stitch, and into the second one, under both loops, I'm going to make a half double crochet. And this half double crochet is the first stitch of my next row, so I'm going to mark it with a stitch marker. Now I'm going to go backwards to this skipped stitch, and into that stitch I will make the same kind of puff stitch that I did before. Yarn over, insert the hook, draw up a loop. Yarn over, insert the hook, draw up a loop. Yarn over, insert the hook, draw up a loop. Now I have 7 loops on the hook, yarn over and draw through all of them. And here is the second puff stitch, which is work on top of this one, which is going to create that wheat stitch design. I skip the next stitch over here, and into the next one I make a half double crochet. And now I'm gonna go back to the skipped stitch, and into that stitch I make another puff stitch. Again, skip the next stitch, and into the next one I make a half double crochet. And now I'm gonna go back to the skipped stitch and I make a puff stitch into it. 1, 2, 3. And this is how I'm going to continue crocheting this row. Skip the next stitch, into the next one a half double crochet. Then go backwards and make a puff stitch into the skipped stitch. Again, skip the next stitch and into the next one half double crochet. Then go backwards and make a puff stitch into the skipped stitch. And I'll see you at the end of this row. Here I am at the end of this row. I just worked the last puff stitch, and over here I have one half double crochet which I marked with a stitch marker, and into that last half double crochet I make a half double crochet. And again, here at the end of the row I don't skip any stitches, so I simply make a half double crochet into the last half double crochet. I turn my work and I start the next row with 2 chains, 1, 2, and again these 2 chains don't count as a stitch. This is the first stitch, this is the next stitch. This row is gonna be very simple. It's gonna be a row of half double crochets, and I will work them into each stitch across. So into the first half double crochet I make a half double crochet, and I'm going to mark that stitch. Into the next stitch I make a half double crochet again. Into the next stitch I make a half double crochet, and I'm making these half double crochets under 2 loops of the stitches. From the side it might look like I'm working under the front loop only, but I'm working under both loops. So this row is very simple. It's just a row of half double crochets into each stitch across. Here I am at the end of the row, and I have 1 stitch marked with a stitch marker, and that's why it's so helpful to mark the first stitch of each row with a stitch marker, because once you get to the end of the row it might be a bit confusing. Are you done? Should you make 1 more stitch? But if you mark the first stitch of each new row with a stitch marker, you will know exactly where the last stitch must be worked. So this row was just a row of half double crochets. I turn my work and I start next row with 2 chains. These 2 chains don't count as a stitch. And this row again I will make half double crochets into each half double crochet across. So into the first stitch I make a half double crochet, and I mark that stitch with a stitch marker right away. And then into each stitch across, working under both loops, I simply make half double crochets. And again, at the end of the row, I know exactly where to make the last stitch. Now I have 5 rows worked. And from this point, the pattern begins to repeat from row number 2. I start with 2 chains, 1, 2, which don't count as a stitch. I skip the first stitch, first half double crochet, and into the next one, I work a half double crochet. This is gonna be the first stitch of the new row, so I mark it with a stitch marker. Now I'm gonna go backwards to this stitch and make a puff stitch over here. 1, 2, 3. So this is the same kind of puff stitch as over here. I skip the next stitch, and into the next one I make a half double crochet. And then I'm gonna go back and make a puff stitch into the skipped stitch. So basically this row is exactly the same as row number 2. And then the next row will be exactly the same as row number 3. And that's how I'm going to continue crocheting. And in my scarf, I worked, okay, let's see, it's more like this way. So in my scarf, I worked the total of 16 rows. And the very last row was row number 4. So in between the rows of these wheat stitches, we make 2 rows of half double crochets. Like over here, I made 2 rows of half double crochets. But after the very last one, I only made 1 row of half double crochets. And that's how you work. Oh, actually, it's upside down. Like this. No, this side. Yeah, like this. And that's how you work this stitch, and that's how you can make this scarf.